We all know that life can be really, really tough. We've all had something bad happen to us that we wish didn't happen, or done something that we regret. However, thinking about it over and over again is just going to make you even unhappier. It's only going to make it worse. So how can we let go of our past to move on to a better future? In this video, I'm going to show you 5 tips on how you can finally break free from your past. So the first tip would be that you want to have a vision of your future, and also optimism. You want to have this vision for your future so that any time you go into this state in which you ruminate about the past, that you can replace those thoughts about your past with the thoughts about your future. According to Dr. Benjamin Hardy, an organisational psychologist, we tell the story of our past too often when we are asked about ourselves. We often think of what happened in our past. We then answer by talking about our past. However, according to Dr. Benjamin Hardy, we should tell the story of our future selves more often. There's this quote that your present can only be as big as your future is. Another reason why having a vision is so important is because only when you know what it is that you want, only when you know how you want your story to end, only then can you think about how the things in your past could have actually helped you in a way, giving you an advantage in a way to get to that destination. Only when you know what you want in your life, only when you know what you want for your future, can you think about how your past could have made it easier for you to get there. Lessons you might have learned from these experiences that will help you get there. And this would be the second tip, to see how the things in your past, even though they were really, really painful, could have actually happened for you and not to you. How your adversity could have been your advantage, because it is the present and also the future, because later on the future will also be the present, that determines the meaning of the past, and not the past that determines the meaning of your future or your present. And then the third tip would be that you want to make sure that you develop a growth mindset opposed to a fixed mindset. So a growth mindset is, for example, when something bad happens to you. For example, let's say you do poorly at something that you wanted to do well at. Someone with a growth mindset in that situation would then think, okay, this shows that I simply haven't prepared enough for it. It doesn't have anything to do with that I can't do it. I can do it. I just have to work more to get better results. Whereas a person with a fixed mindset will think, this result just shows how bad I am at this. And since I'm so bad at this certain thing, no matter how much I try to get better at it, I'm never going to manage, because that's simply who I am. I am this person that is bad at this and this. I simply haven't got the talent to do so. And of course, if you've got this mindset, you are not likely to take action in future, because you then think that there's no point in actually trying, because you're not going to manage anyway, because you think that you know from the very start that it's going to go badly again because it went badly the other time. And of course, if you think that every single event that happens to you shows how you are innately wrong or innately evil or innately bad at this certain thing, of course then your past event, of course then the pain that derives from these bad situations is going to be more painful than it would if you think that you could actually change about it. What's especially painful about this whole thing is that there's no hope really if you think that you can't change, because if you think you can't change and you can't change the situation, then you haven't got any hope of things getting better, and then you feel helpless, and helplessness often leads to depression at some point. Another reason why a fixed mindset isn't good is because then you kind of identify with that negative thing. So, for example, if you get a bad mark, then you simply think, I'm stupid or I'm not good at whatever the subject was. And if you think that this stupidity or this being bad at that subject is a part of you, is a part of your identity, that is going to set you up for failure. And it's going to set you up to failure in two ways. Because firstly, our identity influences our behaviour, and secondly, our identity influences our performance as well. So for example, when it comes to practicing, I've already explained that of course someone with a fixed mindset won't practice as much because they think there's no point, because no matter what they do, they're going to have a bad result. There was this study on smokers, and when these smokers were asked whether they wanted a cigarette or not, then those who would reject the cigarette would answer in two different ways. So one group would answer that they don't want the cigarette because they're not smokers, whereas the others would answer that they don't want the cigarette because they're trying to quit smoking. And in this study, it turned out that those who said that they're not smokers found it much easier to quit simply because they took on the identity of someone who isn't a smoker, and that identity made it much easier for them to change their behaviour. Whereas with the other group who said, I want to quit smoking, they think that they're trying to quit this thing that is still a part of them, that still belongs to their identity, and therefore find it much more difficult. And then a study that shows how your identity influences your performance is this study on Asian women, and these Asian women had to then take a maths test. But before they took this maths test, they were split into two groups. One group was reminded that they were Asian, and the other group was reminded that they are women. Those who were primed with the aspect of them being a woman did much worse at the maths test because they thought, oh, okay, I'm a woman, of course I'm not going to be as good at maths. I've got this disadvantage because males tend to do better at maths. Whereas the Asian women who were reminded that they're Asians, there's also this association with Asians that they are very, very good at maths. So these did very, very well at this maths test because they were reminded and primed into thinking that they are Asians. So you can see that this whole fixed mindset thing, thinking that you are bad at something and that it's not because you haven't practiced enough or haven't worked hard enough, is a vicious cycle and a self-fulfilling prophecy. Because it is your beliefs, so when you've got a fixed mindset thinking that I'm not good, or thinking that you are good at something, that lead to you taking action. Or if you feel that you're not good at that certain thing, will lead you to not taking action. And then, of course, according to whether you take action or not, you're either going to get results or you're not going to get results. And if you didn't try in the first place or didn't make an effort in the first place, those results are going to be bad because you didn't actually make an effort. And then you will have this belief about you being bad at this certain thing again, when it actually only was because you didn't practice in the first place, because you went into that situation thinking that, okay, I'm no good at this and that's why I'm not going to practice in the first place. Whereas if you take action because you feel like you can do it and then get results because of taking that action, then those results are going to confirm your belief that you can actually change your behaviour by taking action, therefore you will be taking more action. It's basically the self-efficacy loop, where the more action you take, the more confidence you have, and because of that confidence, you're more willing to try even more, and then you're more confident, and the loop goes on and on. So, for example, people with a fixed mindset will have a very tough life because, for example, if they're excluded, they will basically think, okay, this means because I'm being excluded, this means that I'm a bad person, or this means that I'm uncharismatic and that I'm no good at social interactions. And then this person with a fixed mindset will try and avoid social interactions as much as possible in future because they've had this bad experience and think that it's because of who they are that they've had that bad experience. And then the same goes for school. If a kid has a fixed mindset and gets a bad mark, that child is going to think, I'm no good at this, so I'm not going to make an effort. I'm not going to practice for the next test because it's not going to work anyway, and therefore it will also have a worse future because it's going to go on not studying anymore because it thinks that it's basically not good at that subject, and therefore there's no point trying in the first place. And then the fourth tip would be that you don't want to blame yourself for every single thing in your life that has happened to you. Now, to make it clear, I do believe that we have to take responsibility for our mistakes and that we have to own up our mistakes and also think what we could have done better and how we could do it better in future and where we might have not been as kind or as hardworking. Because only once you see what you could do better, only then can you actually change that weakness. However, not everything that happens in your life is your fault. So being rejected in itself doesn't mean that there's something wrong with you or that you're unlovable. Except if someone rejects you because you've done something bad, that's a different matter. Then you have to actually own up that mistake. But in many cases, people can also just reject you because you're not the type of person that they like a lot. They may even like you a little bit, but they might like other people more than you. And that's then just a matter of taste. That doesn't mean that anything's wrong with you. And another situation in which, of course, you shouldn't blame yourself is, for example, if you are hit by your parents or by a partner. That doesn't mean that there's something innately broken with you or that you're wrong or that you deserve to be hit. So in those cases, you're not hit because you deserved it, but you're hit because maybe your parents are alcoholics or they take drugs and they have no idea what they're doing and so they're just letting it out on you. Or it could also be that your parents are very, very strict. Even though we're strict parents, I'd have to say that, of course, then it is because you've done something wrong, but that doesn't mean that you deserved to be hit for having done that certain thing wrong. And in general, I don't think this is a great parenting style. And then the fifth tip would be that you want to stop ruminating about what you could have done, what you should have done, and what you would have done if you could go back in time, because that's only going to make you feel even more miserable. Of course, you should learn from that situation and think about what you do in future. But thinking about the exact same situation isn't going to take you any further because that situation is never going to happen exactly that way again with exactly the same people or exactly the same circumstances. However, in future, there might be certain patterns or certain things that are very similar to that situation in your past. And then in those situations, you want to apply what you've learned from the past situation that was very similar and then use it to deal with that situation. So basically, don't think about what you should have done, what you could have done back then, but think about what you are going to do from now on if so-and-so happens. Because you can't change your yesterdays, you can only change your tomorrows. Now, I suppose that if you have these regrets of your past or these bad situations happening to you in your past, that you may be very avoidant because of the things that have happened that have really hurt you and that you therefore want to avoid. And this avoidant behaviour may also be that you are afraid of failure. So if you want to watch a video on the fear of failure, you can watch this video here.